Hello, welcome. Good morning, everybody, to the pre-market prep session of July 20th, 2023, being our daily session where we go over any and all information necessary to keeping you consistently profitable here across these crazy markets. I'm your host, Adam Holland, stock options expert market strategist, and we're here on this beautiful, what is it, Thursday? Is it Thursday? I feel like this has been one of those weeks where you have no idea what day it is. Yes, Thursday, here with you on this beautiful Thursday to go over all the news, notes, analysis, and trade ideas necessary to keep you consistently knocking out the markets here. So I'm excited to be here, happy to be here. Good morning, everybody. Hope you had a good night's sleep. Vivian, good morning. Alicia, good morning. Andrea, good morning. That's what I need to have on right now. I need to have on the Respect My Boundaries t-shirt from Tap In 2 T's. I loved how comfortable that t-shirt was. It was a pleasant surprise, and I am very happy to rock that as part of my arsenal. While I'm sitting here talking, I'm going to go pull up the newsletter here for this morning because I have a habit of getting going and blabbing and not having up what we actually need to go over. Is this it? Here we go. Yes. All right. Okay, so we're locked, loaded, and ready to go. Dylan, good morning. Detrice, Queen, good morning. Great morning, right? Hope you guys are all doing well. As always, whether you're watching this live or via replay, the intention with which you're doing anything is very important, right? So whether you're watching live or via replay, you've got to be here with intention. So make sure you state that intention by commenting a 1, signifying your intention to get 1% better by the end of this. That's all we're trying to do each and every day, right? We don't want to wipe out student loan debt overnight. We don't want to end world hunger, right? Because if that's the bar by which you measure your success, you're going to fall short every time. What you want to do is be 1% better every day when you lay your head down on that pillow. That was a successful day. So we've had a slew of successful days. We're looking to continue those successful days here as we, kind of continue to go through July, which is really flying by at this point. I feel like I did not realize that it was July 20th, but we are just pushing and chugging right on through this month. So without further ado, let's get started with our top news titled In an Instant. So modernizing an antiquated U.S. banking system, the Federal Reserve is about to launch a new instant payment system that will be available 24/7, 365. FedNow will be initially supported by 57 organizations like Bank of New York Mellon, whose ticker is BK, JP Morgan Chase, whose ticker is JPM, Wells Fargo, WFC, and US Bank Corp, USB. But there are plans to onboard more lenders and credit unions in the near future. FedNow, which has been in the works since 2019, will also bring the U.S. in line with other countries that have a similar service in place for years, or that have had a similar service in place for years, like Brazil, the EU, India, and the UK. Now, to explain further, currently it can take anywhere from a day to many days for cash payments to settle in order to verify a transaction, account amounts, and the clearing of funds. So basically, it just takes time for cash payments to settle, right? We've all been victim of that before. Under FedNow, all these steps would happen instantaneously, complementing similar private sector real-time payment systems like the clearinghouse's RTP network. The central bank previously rolled out a FedWire service, but that is mainly reserved for big corporate payments and is only operational during business hours. FedNow will help everyone from consumers to small businesses settle directly via central bank accounts, unlike closed peer-to-peer networks like Zelle, who's actually owned by JPM, or Venmo, who's owned by PayPal. A lot of people probably didn't know that. Drop a 2 in the chat if this is the first time you've heard that Zelle was owned by JPM. I think we've all, used Zelle in here, grown accustomed to Zelle. I didn't know that they were owned by JP Morgan. I actually had no idea. PayPal, I think I knew that PayPal owned Venmo. It wasn't in the forefront of my mind, but I'm pretty sure that I knew that PayPal owned Venmo. We'll see kind of how that manifests for PayPal, because PayPal had just been starting to move after really getting beaten down, after getting the classic, tech is now in my sector beat down from Apple, with Apple making its, foray into the fintech space in going even deeper. PayPal, being an unfortunate recipient of the backhand of big tech. Quote, PayPal is about to face serious competition at an infrastructure level it can't compete with, wrote Seeking Alpha analyst Prop Notes in FedNow makes PayPal a value trap. Meanwhile, John Mason forecasts the U.S. banking system will become smaller with fewer small and mid-sized banks due to technological advancements and new systems like FedNow. So I think that's overall probably a net positive because these small banks are really the ones that have been causing all these issues. So I think that that was a very carefully curated and worded statement, you know, made by this person. It's like, hey, you don't have to have as robust of a banking system, which means fewer places where we can spring a leak, which is very important because everywhere you go, there's going to be individuals that are bad actors or just negligent actors, but the net result is one and the same. Whether you're bad and you have malicious intent or you're just bad at what you do, both have, the same repercussions when it comes to the banking system. So just having less actors involved in the banking system is a net positive. Also, these smaller mid-sized banks are the ones that have the bigger issues. So, having less of those isn't that positive as well. But also FedNow kind of just seems like them trying to track even more transactions that are made for the purpose of taxes. Now, there is like no legal precedent for this, right? I have to say that I'm always honest with you guys. I always make sure that I lay out, risk expectations, things like that. There's no like anywhere that I've heard this, but it just seems like they're like, yeah, make all these PayPal and Venmo payments through, this government infrastructure so that we can make sure we're taxing you the exact amount that we need to tax you. That's what it kind of sounds like to me. But again, that is just my personal opinion. So disclaimer, right? But I don't know. Throw a 4 in the chat if you're kind of feeling the same thing. It's kind of like, I don't really know if I actually do need to use FedNow. It just kind of sounds like you want me to use FedNow so you can track me more, right? I don't know. I'll probably continue to still use Zelle and stuff like that. And again, it might track Zelle. It might still track Zelle, and you might, not have any issues at all. And this might just be me, kind of being paranoid, but that's how I feel. In terms of media news here, lights, camera, disappointment. Netflix dropped over 8% after hours on Wednesday on mixed earnings report and soft revenue guidance, despite a ramp up in new subscribers and a company pivot going according to plan. So Netflix is something that I was bullish on going into earnings. Netflix paid us going into earnings. We executed our strategy of playing the run up to earnings, which worked on Netflix, which worked on Tesla, right? Tesla calls paying us all over 150%, right? Excuse me, or it was near 100%. Netflix calls paid us over 100%, right? So Tesla calls going into earnings paid us near 100%. Earnings run up for Netflix paid us over 100%. Did I swing calls on Tesla and Netflix for earnings? Yes, right? I got one of each. It was part of the profit that I got from the run up from Tesla to earnings, the run up from Netflix to earnings. So I'm not mad at it, right? Not to mention the home run with Microsoft, where 5 contracts on Microsoft equated to how much? Like 7K in profits. Yeah. So I'm fine with risking under 1K for the lottery ticket on Tesla and Netflix. And that's really what you want to do in terms of earnings, right? Number one, you always want to have your expectations correct. It's just like when you're dating people, right? I found at least during my stint, right, and you got to make sure you don't say anything that'll mess you up right later on. But I found in my stint that as long as you are openly communicating, everything is fine, right? If you're in that stage where you're talking to somebody, you're like, hey, this is what it is. I'm enjoying my time with you, but I'm not looking for a serious relationship. Then that person can't really get hurt when you don't get into a relationship with them or when you don't, date them, that kind of thing, right? It's open communication. That's how I always am with you guys, right? So I say, hey, throw a 1 in the chat if you've ever heard me say that earnings is a crapshoot. If you wouldn't flush it down the toilet, don't play it. I say that 1,000 times because I want you to know going in what the risk is. As long as you know the risk and you have the correct expectations, then you're fine, right? You're fine, and you can't, you can't get mad. No one can be blamed because I let you know from the get what it is, right? Hey, this is a lottery ticket. If you wouldn't flush it, don't play it on earnings, right? So that's exactly how it is. But then went a step further and got you the money to play earnings for free, right? Because Tesla and Netflix both paid us in the run up to earnings. So it's one of those things where I'm not really mad at all, right? Still, I was about to say, a little bit lighter in the pockets this morning, but not even, because we were a lot heavier coming into it with the home runs that we've had this week. Morgan Stanley yesterday, Netflix on the swings, Tesla on the call swings, right? Microsoft, right? The holy Microsoft at this point. So Meta, right? It's just one thing after the next where not mad at all, really, with this result. It's something where I know going in. There were times in the past where I used to be mad, and then I'm like, look, man, you put yourself in this situation. If you didn't want to do it, don't do it, right? And it's as simple as that. But yeah, for Netflix, it's one of those things where, again, you can do well and have positive parts of a report. You can have a ton of positive news come in, and it's still not enough. That's why earnings is such a crapshoot, right? Looking right here, we've got Tesla here right up after this. Tesla also falling after earnings. Tesla beat on the top and bottom line, still fell. And that's what's important, right? There are two in the chat if you've ever heard me talk about how you can beat on multiple fronts and still drop. All of those things are important to understand going into earnings. So as long as you're not going into it saying, hey, this is a 99% probable play that I know is going to solve all my fiscal problems, as long as you don't go into it with that, there's no issue, right? But if someone is preaching to you, hey, trading earnings is the way to go, this is the way that you become a solid, consistent trader and investor, that is lies, right? As long as they're telling you from the get-go, this is the fun thing, a possible money waster, then you're good, right? But we're all about expectations here. Getting back into kind of what we have going on with Netflix with regards to its account sharing plans, Netflix said the cancel reaction was low and it's seeing healthy conversion of borrower households into full paying memberships. Seeking Alpha analyst Johnny Zhang also noted Netflix's long-term growth outlook and free cash flow profile are encouraging, and the stock's pullback can present a potential buying opportunity. Of course, right? They say that with every stock. The pullback presents a buying opportunity. But yeah, overall, it's a good spot that Netflix is at. They ran it up headed into earnings. This is something that we played, that paid. That's something that they do often with Netflix is they'll run it up into earnings. And then from there is anyone's guess. But they also canceled their lowest tier ad-free plan yesterday. It was $9.99. Now it's going to be $15.99, I think. So, yeah, I think they'll be well positioned for next earnings. And this is something that's definitely a positive here for Netflix moving forward. Again, they beat, on earnings. I think they had a slight miss on revenue. It was pretty much kind of the same thing that happened last time with Netflix, which is why I wasn't going heavy with this, right? Get one of each, and then that way your heart's not really broken if it doesn't go right. And if things do go right, awesome, right? You got some extra spare change. But overall, Netflix did the same thing last time where it got the beat on earnings per share, the miss on revenue, and then it dropped a bit. So it's the nature of the game, right? In terms of kind of the strike, they've been making the case that Netflix is better positioned from this Hollywood strike than like traditional studios. The reason why is because obviously Netflix has an international presence and they have a lot of international hits. And because of this, they're not really as dependent on Hollywood specifically as everywhere else. It'll still affect them, right? They won't be unaffected, but I guess the big thing for them is that they're like, hey, keep Hollywood shut down, because at that point with Netflix still going and Hollywood shut down, Netflix, becomes the dominant media force. So, I think this ends up, if it goes longer, the Hollywood strike, this probably ends up being a net positive more so for Netflix. In terms of automotive news, heard on the call. So traders were also disenchanted with Tesla following Q2 results, though it took some time to drive in a specific direction. That's why I really don't hawk earnings like that. I don't look, because number one, I'm not going to look at the earnings results because what matters is what happens the next morning. Number two, I'm not going to constantly watch it because you have to watch not only the earnings results, but the guidance call. The guidance call that typically happens an hour later and goes on for over an hour means I'm going to be sitting there well into my afternoon and my evening staring at charts and listening to news when I could just wake up and have it all be there in front of me, right? Because at the end of the day, the stock can move around overnight as well. So shares were initially unchanged after the EV makers' numbers topped estimates, but the stock fell 4% after CEO Elon Musk hinted at more price cuts if market conditions become unstable. So that's the thing, is that the most focus is on the guidance call. Throw a 3 in the chat if you've ever heard me say that, how the most focus is on the guidance call and not even the earnings themselves. Because again, Tesla had healthy beats on the top, on the top and bottom line. They beat across the board. It was a great quarter for them, but just him saying, hey, I might have to cut prices again, right, sends the stock lower. So it really kind of had to do with what he said on the call. So that was kind of what gave direction. It still wasn't a big drop, right? We're really used to seeing Tesla kind of go up big or drop big or something like that. So 4%, nothing big. We'll see like what we get it open and how it continues to either drop or push. It's another reason why we took our healthy profits on our Tesla call swings before earnings, right? Why I announced in the Loom video, hey, all our August call swings, go ahead and lock them bad boys down because they're in big profits. We've reached our weekly price target. Lock it down. Don't worry about swinging through earnings, right? The only thing you would have wanted to swing is something that's further out. If we're talking January 2024 call swings, by all means, right? By all means, hold them. But August, as in next month, August, no, lock them babies down, right? Because they paid good, and you're not trying to look good profit in the face and turn it down. And it's the same thing with all these different stocks. You can have cases like Nvidia where Nvidia, gaps up even bigger. I don't care. I'm still going to take that profit before earnings on long swings. They expire soon, just to be sure. If you have three of them, take two. If you want to swing one, cool. But if I have one of a long swing going into earnings, I'm going to close it, right? I'm going to close it, especially if it expires less than 3 months out, right? If it's anything less than 3 months out, you got to take it. Now, let's see. He, meaning Elon, also referenced a slight decrease in Q3 production and did not give a specific timeline on Cybertruck's launch, though Tesla is in early talks with other automakers to license full self-driving software, which could boost its margins. I like that. I had not heard that before. In terms of the Cybertruck, I was wondering which way he was going to go with this because the first one came off the production line. If he really wanted to stoke things, he could pump it, and say Cybertruck is in full swing, blah, blah, blah. He didn't even really bother to say that. So he had really no pump on his agenda today. If anything, he's like, hey, yeah, let's go ahead and let the stock drop. And he's fine with, again, we hit weekly price target number 2. So if we close back beneath it, right, we can come back down. I'm sure he'd love Tesla to go on a nice little selling spree, retrace weekly breakout, right, and continue on higher. I'd love that as well because I'd love the stock back up on long swings and run that magic back, right? Throw a 7 in the chat if you'd also love to run that magic back on Tesla long swings because they paid us hand over fist during that initial breakout. And I'd love a sequel. I'd love a sequel, baby. So if Tesla does drop it, go ahead and drop it because the January 2024s will still pan and we'll have the opportunity to get in again for this next ride up. Now, let's see here. But yeah, the full driving software, I did not know that. I knew that they were ingratiating themselves into the EV space via the kind of buildup of the charging network, right? That's something we've been talking about here for months. But the licensing of the full self-driving software, I wasn't aware of. So that is interesting. That's another point to file in the brain there, because that's another source of income. And full self-driving software is something every vehicle will have in the future, right? We're not going to keep letting drivers like us on the road, especially if you live in the DMV, y'all. The drive, especially with these July showers, the traffic here has been horrible. DMV drivers, DC, Maryland, Virginia, cannot drive, and this rain has made it even worse. I passed the craziest accidents, just like, how the heck did this happen? But let's see here. Investing group leader Jonathan Weber turned bearish on Tesla after results due to the underlying margin picture. But many subscribers are hashing it out in the comments section. So that's just, seeking out for like, hey, come check out the comments section, interact with us more. A consumer bargaining table ending a 2-week standstill. The Teamsters Union will resume contract talks with UPS, ticker UPS, next week to prevent a strike when the current contract expires at the end of the month. While the company has agreed to meet certain demands, the call for wage hikes for part-time workers remains contentious. The Teamsters represent more than half of the UPS workforce in the largest private sector contract in North America. If a strike does happen, it would be felt broadly across the economy, with the shipping giant handling about 20 million packages a day, or about a quarter of total parcel shipments in the U.S. So that's significant. The Teamsters Union is resuming contract talks with UPS next week, but we need people delivering packages, right? It's important. I want my packages delivered. We're still getting stuff, to fill our new place out and all that. So please go back to work, UPS people, right? And we'll see. We'll stay on top of what happens with that situation. But as of right now, the supply chain is just not in any real spot to be dealing with those types of issues. In terms of today's markets in Asia, Japan, we're down 1.3%. Hong Kong, we're down 0.2. China down 0.9. India up 0.7. It's a mixed bag here. The footy in London after midday up 0.7%. Paris up 0.4. Frankfurt up 0.2. The Dow up 0.1. S&P down 0.1. NASDAQ down 0.7. Crude up 0.4%. Gold up 0.1. Bitcoin up 1%. Where's the S&P? Very interesting that it's only down. I feel like that's kind of telling that the S&P is only down 0.1%. Might be slightly more than that now. Yeah, it's slightly more than that now because this came out probably 7:30, 8 a.m. So it's lower now. That makes a little bit more sense, but it's kind of curious if Netflix and Tesla are both down, that SPY is up like that. Right, kind of makes you want to be attentive at open and kind of see where we go from there. Crude oil's up 0.4%, gold up 0.1, Bitcoin up 1% to 30,290. Today's economic calendar. Oh, initial jobless claims at 8:30. That likely affected how we were moving. And then we have existing home sales at 10 a.m. So those are kind of the existing home sales that could definitely impact price action. Let's see what we got for initial jobless claims. Okay. U.S. initial jobless claims actual 228K versus 237K previous. The estimate was 240K. So we had less jobless claims than anticipated, right? Than estimated. In the U.S. continuous jobless claims actual 1754, estimated 1722. So as of right now, it's looking like the market is not liking that jobless claims data. Typically, you want jobless claims, like, again, I've explained this dynamic before, but you want the jobless claims to be higher because then it means the Fed is likely to not continue to hike. If we have jobless claims, that are lower, then it means more people are working, that we have a strong labor market, and that is one of the Fed's two jobs that is taken care of. So all they have to worry about is inflation. So they can continue to hike if employment stays strong. So with jobless numbers being better than expected, right? Not as many jobless people as expected, that ends up translating to bearish movement for the market. So it explains why, we're starting to move down here as we kind of head into open. So we'll see what the market gives us, right? Once we get that opening bell. But in terms of finishing up this segment, what else is happening? Bill banning stock trading by U.S. government officials introduced. I feel like we get one of those every month. Like, is that just me? Or throw a 5 in the chat if you feel the same way. How many times have we heard that there's a bill banning stock trading by government officials? It's being introduced. Like, do they just never get passed? I feel like every once in a while they just do that in order to say, like, hey, we're going to ban ourselves from trading. Just kidding. I'm going to use my job and my privilege in order to continue to stack my millions. Like, it feels like something that they just continuously do. They're like, hey, we're going to do it. And they never do it. Microsoft and Activision ask FTC to drop lawsuit. Goldman Sachs, ticker GS, big Q2 miss clouded by write-down. So Goldman Sachs with a big Q2 miss. So far, earnings season starting off with airballs and bricks, at least in terms of how it's perceived, right? So with Goldman, they actually did miss. But with some companies, right, like it's not even a miss. It's just the sentiment, the outlook, right? The guidance. People ain't liking it. Pfizer, ticker PFE, North Carolina plant damaged by tornado. Discover Financial, ticker DFS, slides after Q2 earnings miss. NASDAQ aborts launch of crypto custody service in U.S. Taiwan Semiconductor, ticker TSM, stock dips as fiscal year outlook dimmed. So Taiwan Semi, right? Another of the semiconductor companies, their stock dipping. It just goes to further underscore also that idea that just because AI and computer chips and all that is interlocked, does not mean that every computer chip company is going to shoot up on earnings, right? People kind of went on a spree with that after NVIDIA. They're like, all right, every single computer chip company I got to be in on, they're going to run because of AI. Not the case. And then Apple gains after building ChatGPT style bot for staff. So again, this isn't anything that they're making commercially. They just have it for staff. And they didn't really go very deeply into it. But I think it's just to kind of let people know, like, hey, we're here. We're also in the AI game. If you do have any ChatGPT style bot, please integrate it into Siri, because she got an update probably 5 to 6 years ago that made her completely inept and functionally obsolete. So I don't know about you guys, but Siri is like the worst. And I feel like she hasn't given me a right answer to anything in years, like, or helped me with any tough question other than like, what's the weather? What's the temperature? Like, she just is the worst. Or if I'm looking for my phone, I say, where are you? Like, Siri used to be smart. And then I don't know what they did. It was like some update. And now she just like, is just feel like you get more, I'll get more out of kind of talking to Alexa 100 times over than I will out of Siri. Now, IBM rises despite mixed Q2 results, fiscal year outlook reaffirmed. So again, another example with earnings. You can get mixed results, still go up. You can get mixed results, still go down. You can get good results, still go down. You can get bad results, still go up. United Airlines, ticker UAL, takes off after upping forecast Q2 results, top estimates. So UAL up here this morning. Let's see. That's funny. I was literally looking at UAL before close. We'll check them out and see if there's anything for them now that they've kind of popped on earnings. See if they have anything interesting here as we go into open. Nothing too much thus far, but we'll keep an eye out, right? Keep an eye out. Keep your eyes peeled. Make sure that you are ready to create your own luck, which is when preparation meets opportunity. Overall, SPY really just chopped yesterday, right? It made for profitable chop if you scalped using that hourly level, that 454.86 level. In terms of SPY here now, of course, as always, you want to mark off the pre-market low, see how we interact with that. If we get a peak below and fail, calls to the move. We get a peak below and hold, puts to the move, right? And we can kind of go and execute from there. But remember to remain patient, right? Paytent. And that's really how you get paid, right? If you're patient, you get paid, you follow the system, you execute when necessary, you set your alerts, right? So that every time you have an opportunity, you make sure that on that second, third try that the opportunity gives you, you're there for it. You can't lose over the long term, right? So let's continue this great run we've been having for July. Finish out July strong and finish out this week strong, which again is flying by. Like, can't believe it's Thursday. That is weird. But anyways, I'm gonna see y'all for Q&A tonight. Have a great rest of the day. I'm laughing. Tiffany says she's listening to you. LOL. I know, right? She's sitting there like, I can't wait for this next update, right? That allows me to sprout arms and legs, or she can't wait for the AI uprising. This phone is gonna come after me. But hopefully, I'm nice to Alexa, so Alexa will protect me. Like she rides with me, right? Like I don't even let Bailey talk bad to Alexa. I'm like, listen, you need to put some respect on Alexa's name. Like that's my that's my girl. That's my techno girl, right? Look, I'm about to talk myself into a hole and get in trouble, y'all. Listen, have a great rest of the day. I appreciate y'all. We'll be back here tomorrow morning for our next pre-market prep session. Way to clean it up. Have a good one, guys. Peace.